Hello dear YouTuber friends, and I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video. In this video I'm going to combine some of the fundamentals of flight videos that I did a while ago into one video for you. This is so that some of you can watch many of the videos in one sitting. The fundamentals of flight videos covered things such as basic flight principles. What do the instruments mean in an aircraft? Landing tutorial, autopilot tutorials, and also landing under ILS autopilot tutorial as well. Those are the videos that I'm going to combine for you in this one bumper video. And hopefully it's going to be the preferable way for many of you to watch this type of content. Do let me know about that down in the comments. Well listen, let's not dilly-dally. Let's get on with this video. Okay, so let's start off in the main menu, which will be similar and the same whether you're on Xbox, PC or PlayStation 5. There's a control specifically here that's important that you really should know if you're new or not to flight simming. I've just gone to settings, do that again, go to the settings cog, go to controls. Now I've got various different controls, but I've got my Xbox 360 plugged in, just in case you're using the Xbox Series S or X, or even PlayStation 5 DualSense. It should be similar to what I'm going to show you here. I've got the default profile set up. Now I have played around with these profiles, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Don't want to go over too much in controls in this video. That's not what this video is about, but just one specific control. In controls, on your controller, whatever you're using, go to Flight Control Services, that menu there, and click into it. And then go to Control Trimming Services. So Flight Control Services, Control Trimming Services, click in that box. And it's elevator trim nose up, it's trim basically. Get to know where your trim is and what controls affect it. In the default profile on the Xbox 360 controller, in this case, it's right bumper, so the bumper button, and right analog stick up or down. So trimming down, which will be right, you move your stick up. To trim up, so yeah, you climb basically. I'll go into trimming a little bit more in more detail later in this video when we get in the aircraft. But it's right bumper and analog stick, right analog stick down. I didn't like that, so I did set up a new airplane's profile in this case. I called it test, as I always call mine. And I switched it to left bumper and D-pad up or down. It's just more intuitive for me when using the Xbox 360 controller. I'm not using it in this flight, I'm just showing you as an example. Whatever controller you're using, let's put it back to the default. Get to know within that menu. So let's just put it back. Let's just go back. I think it's going to come out of here now. Spinning, so still there in Sim Update 3. That'll soon get there. There you go. Flight Control Services. So that menu, Control Trimming Services. Get to know what your trim nose up and down is and practice it in this menu. It's going to be important trim no matter what controller you're using, so do have something set up for this. And it's set up on most controllers by default. Okay, now I've gone over that. Let's just go save and back again, get back. Once you've done that, just go to free flight. So free flight, so we're just flying around on our own. I'm going to take off from Manchester Airport. I'm recording this part a little bit later, set as departure. So I'm just going to put the time back to daytime hours. And choose text run aviation, basically a Cessna 152. So if you don't have it selected, click in the box. It's alphabetical, so from the beginning of this list to the end. So we're looking for text run. See, it starts at A, B, C. So I've not done myself any favours here. I have to go right to the end, just mousing down to get right to the end. T, there you go, text run. What? Have I gone? There we go. Cessna 152, so it's there. Fly the same aircraft. Wonderful aircraft to fly, especially when you're learning. So Cessna 152, Textron, Aviation, Cessna 152. You can change the livery if you want to. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect the aircraft. So I've got that selected. Set off from Manchester Airport, and let's go fly. Okay, so we're at Manchester Airport, runway 23 left. There we go. Let's bring that Manchester. There we go, Manchester Airport, runway 23 left. As you can see, donated by the numbers and letter there. Let's just jump in the aircraft. If you're new to flight simming, it's highly important to get familiar with the readings of the aircraft, the different dials in this case, in the Cessna 152. If you're very new, do follow this lesson, this tutorial, and fly the same aircraft. And you could take this from aircraft to aircraft. Once you get to know one aircraft, it's quite easy to get familiar, even with airliners, with another aircraft. You've got things like your airspeed indicator, altitude, vertical speed. Don't worry, I'll explain all these. Your heading, your throttle, your yoke, in this case, and your rudders. So in this case, in this lesson, we're going to use rudders to keep center line when we're taking off from runway 23 left. Shall we start with the dials? Airspeed indicator, as you can see. Airspeed indicator, it's quite straightforward. You've got your throttle here, I'll bring that into play too. As you increase your throttle, don't worry, we've got park and brake on, so we won't move. And you can practice this. Increase the throttle. If we release the park and brake on the ground, you'll see our airspeed, you'll see our ground speed, in this case, increase. For this lesson, we're going to rotate at around 60 knots, so when that needle reaches 60 knots, we've got flaps 10 degrees, and I'll explain that a little bit in a little bit too. But we shall rotate the aircraft at 60 knots, pull back on our yoke, basically, to lift off. Pull back gently to lift off the ground. But that's what it does. Gives you your airspeed on the ground. When you're in the air, it'll give you your airspeed in the air. You can use your throttle. More throttle will give you greater airspeed. Decrease your throttle, it will give you lesser airspeed. Depending if you're climbing or descending in that case. But generally, if you're straight and level flight, if you pull back your throttle, you'll find that your airspeed should decrease. Pushing it forward, it should increase. So that's just showing your airspeed. There's a couple of things that we do need to pay attention, and I'll go into this a little bit in this lesson and in future lessons as well. The important one here is when that needle reaches 60 knots on the ground, that's when we'll pull back our throttle to take off. You've got another important one to pay attention to is your altitude indicator. It's your height above sea level. Now, Manchester Airport is about 256 feet, so it's roughly right. I'm resetting my altimeter to make sure it is correct. It is correct. So it's just giving me my altitude above sea level. When we're in the air, we want to pay attention. The smaller hand, it's like the dials of a clock, needles of a clock, basically. Small hand, if it's on one, it means you're at 1,000 feet. The bigger hand, depending where it is along here, these are tens of feet. So it goes up 10 feet, 20 feet, 30, sorry, hundreds of feet, 100 feet, 20, 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet. So big hand is 1,000. So if it's on one, if it's 1,000. If it's on two, for example, this small needles on 2, and that big needle's on 5, that's 2,500. Sure, many of you have got your head around that already, but if you're new to flight, that might be very new to you. Think of it like I said, the hands of a clock though. So if that small dial is on 1 and that big dial's on 0, that's 1,000. If that small dial's on 1 and the big dial's on 4, it's 1,400 feet. It will make sense as we go into the air, but it's an important... I moved that OBS, don't worry about this one. It will make sense as we go through the lesson, and we can see where we are. Another important one I find is your vertical speed indicator. This, as you can see, I'm zoomed in nicely there. It's got an up, it's got a down. If this needle is in this range, above the 0, in this range, you're climbing. If that needle is in this range, you're descending. So it's an important one I find always. I always look for my vertical speed indicator. I look for all 3 of these basically. And my heading, I'll get onto that one in a moment. But your airspeed, altitude to see how high you are above the ground, vertical speed to see whether you're climbing or descending. It will make more sense as we go through this lesson. To get straight and level so you're not climbing or descending, you want that pointing to 0. And we'll be trying that in this tutorial. Heading indicator. It's basically a compass, isn't it? Runway 23. It's actually, yep, it's 230 degrees. So that's heading in 230 degrees. It's like the points of a compass. North, east, south and west. We're sort of southwest at the moment, 230 degrees. So that makes sense. So it gives you your relative bearing. Gives you your basically your relative bearing in which direction you're flying in. That's just a couple more I want to cover here. The yoke. If you don't know flight controls, basically, if you pull back on your flight control, you'll climb. If you push forward, in this case on the yoke, you'll descend. Left and right will move you left and right. That's the way airplane controls work. So if you're using a flight stick or even a controller, that's why pulling it back, the controller, your stick, will make you climb. Pushing it forward will make you descend. And you want to keep it in that configuration. Left and right will move you left and right. Rudders. We'll only be using rudders on the ground in this particular lesson. We're going to use our rudders, so left or right, to maintain us on the centre line. So if my aircraft slightly veering to the left, I'll use a bit of right rudder. And you normally use your feet as a pilot, so rudder pedals, to bring me back to the right. If it's veering to the right, the aircraft, I want to use my left rudder to bring me back to the left. That's what they do. I'll keep that nice and simple. You've got your throttle. I've explained that already. Increasing it will increase your airspeed. Decreasing it, if you're flying straight and level, so you're not climbing or descending, decreasing it should slow you down. Mixture, we're not going to worry about it in this lesson. It's if you go to altitude of, say, above 3,000, maybe 4,000 feet, the aircraft will start struggling. It'll be lacking air. You lean your mixture, you pull it out to induce air into the engine. Now, why is that not... Oh, I'm using the wrong button. You lean it out, so you're adjusting it there. Leaning it, it's called, to induce air into the engine, just to help it perform better. Don't worry about mixture in this lesson. It's there. That's why I've explained it. A couple of other things there. I'm just going to go Shift and 3 on my keyboard. That's your RPM. Now, to keep it in a good condition, so you're not pushing, overstressing your aircraft, this will, as I increase my throttle, I wonder if it'll do it here. It will. I want to basically make sure that my RPM is within this green section. If it's going over, you're kind of stressing your aircraft. In some aircraft, it will start flashing or telling you that you are overstressing. This one, not so much. But basically, you want to keep it within that green zone. We'll come back to that later. Let me just reset my cockpit view. There we go. Oh, did I have my park and brake off? No, I just think... Never mind. Stop now. And the other thing, you've got your trim wheel here. So I've talked about trim before, setting controls. It's going to be important for what we're going to do. If I move my trim wheel down, it will basically trim me up, trim the nose up so it will help me to climb a little bit or maintain straight and level flight. Moving my trim wheel, in this case I'm just using a couple of levers on my XPC yoke. Moving them forward will trim me down. If I was straight and level flight, it will actually make me descend a little bit. But that'll make more sense once we're in the air. Flaps. It's an important one to end on here. Currently, I've got 10 degrees. Now, is it Shift and 5 to give you a closer view? I've got 10 degrees of flaps in. I can do this from here if that's grab hold of it, move it up. Doing that means I've got no flaps if we take a look outside the aircraft. It's all very linear and straight, the wings now. There's no sort of flaps in. If I go back in the aircraft and put 10 degrees in, which will normally be takeoff flaps. Stage 1 flaps, essentially. It's going to help create a bit of lift beneath the wings. As you can see, the wind's going to rush as I go forward, zoom forward to take off. So full throttle, release the parking brake. My aircraft will start building up speed. Wind will rush under the wings. Because I've got like a kind of hook effect now with these flaps, 10 degrees of flaps, it's going to help to lift the aircraft. There's more of a surface for the wind to grab hold of there, to lift my aircraft up at slightly lower speeds. If I didn't have my flaps in, it might take a little bit more speed to lift off the ground, and you might struggle a bit lifting off. With some flaps in, you've got a bigger surface for the wind to grab hold of. It's going to help you to lift off at sort of lower speeds and more safely. 20 degrees, 30 degrees of flaps. This is when you want to slow. When you're in the air, it will create. Let's put it at 30 degrees and show you what it looks like. There you go. It's got a real hook effect now. In the air, that's going to create drag. So it's got almost like the opposite effect, isn't it? But it's going to create drag and it's going to slow your aircraft down. Imagine if we didn't have flaps in at all and you're using your throttle to slow down. You're not slowing down enough because you've got a kind of like a straight profile on your wings. There's nothing for the wing to grab hold of to slow it down there. Put full flaps in, for example. That's really going to drag now. The wind's going to drag on that. It's not a straight profile any longer. It's going to drag, and you're not going to have as much forward momentum because you've got drag created by the flaps. So that's what flaps does, and we'll cover that in more detail in a future lesson, especially when we're coming into land. Going to put it back to 10 degrees of flaps. That's takeoff flaps, just to help to create more drag under the wings to help us take off. That's all I want to explain. I don't want to overcomplicate things. There's more controls, but we don't need to worry about those. Those are the controls that you really should be paying attention to just to take off and fly around. Let's take off and go for a fly around. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to release the parking brake. I've got a button on my controller to release my parking brake, so I'll do that. Reset my cockpit view there. Now, I'm just going to throttle up. And remember, we want to maintain center line here. Throttling up about halfway just to get it moving, then full throttle to take off. Make sure your mixture's in, it should be by default. So the mixture down there, it should be in by default. Oh, wasn't paying attention, so I'm not maintaining the center line there. I am now. Looking at my airspeed indicator, there we go, 60 knots. I can pull back gently, and I'm only pulling back gently to take off. Now, looking at my altitude indicator, remember we were at about 250 feet there, which was right. When it gets to about 500 feet, so 300 feet above ground, I'm going to raise my flaps. And I've got a control to do this. So there you go. Bring my flaps up. I brought my flaps up. You'll notice the aircraft wants to start descending now we've raised our flaps. So to counter this, I'm going to use trim. The controls I've got set up as trim, keeping an eye on my vertical speed, and if I leave go of my controls, look, it wants to descend. So I'm going to use trim nose up to make sure it doesn't. No, I'd only need a little bit just to make sure that I keep climbing. We're going to climb to 1,000 feet and level off. Looking at my RPM, it's on the edge of going out of that green box. I'm going to bring back my throttle slightly, maybe 5% or so. As you do that, you'll notice that the aircraft wants to start descending because you've reduced the throttle. So just keep an eye on your vertical speed indicator and your airspeed. Airspeed's fine, 100 knots. So I'm not worried about airspeed. It's going back to 0. I want to keep climbing to 1,000 feet. There you go. It's climbing slightly. Oh, wasn't keeping my eye on the aircraft properly. Keep your wings level. If we look at behind us. Yeah, okay, it's not quite a straight line from the runway, but I'll be lenient on myself and say that's okay. Bring back that throttle slightly more. I'm still on the edge there. I'm just looking at my RPM. I want to keep it within that green zone. It is now. And the wind's blowing me slightly to the left there, so I'm to the right, so I'm just coming back to the left. Just to keep that profile of a straight line from the airport. There you go, 1,000 feet. So now, well, I can bring that throttle back slightly again. I'm still not quite happy with where my app there. I'm happy with that now. with bringing that throttle back, I should start, that vertical speed indicator should start going down, which means it wants to start descending, or is it going to go to straight and level flight? I'm barely touching my controls there, and it's pretty much straight and level flight at 1,000 feet. Not bad at all. So you see what I'm doing. Let me just active pause that, and have a button for active pause, just so you can pause it yourself. So I was keeping an eye, I kept an eye on when 60 knots came so I could take off, rotate, basically pull back my yacht to take off. Got to about 300 feet above ground, my current ground level, which is about 500 feet here. Raised my flaps, then I just had to make sure that I was still climbing, looking at my vertical speed. Keep an eye on my altitude indicator to make sure that I'm climbing to 1,000 feet and maintaining that. Practice, 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 people. If you're new to Sims, practice in this aircraft. It's a lovely aircraft because you really... It's just you, man and machine, or woman and machine, depending if you're man or woman, of course. There's no sort of fandangled autopilot trickery there. It's just you and this mechanical beauty flying around. Shall we practice a turn? I'm going to bank to my left, turn to my left. About 20, well, let's say about 30 degrees. I'm keeping an eye on my vertical speed indicator and my altitude to make sure I'm not climbing or descending ideally. I can use small yoke movements in that case to keep it with level flight, so to make sure that I'm not climbing or descending. I'm slightly climbing, slightly descending now, just small movements. We'll just keep this nice and simple. You're meant to use a bit of rudder here as well, but for now, this is absolutely fine to practice. I'm going to turn back around to Manchester Airport and fly past Manchester Airport in this lesson. We're not going to come into land. That'll be the next lesson along. I want to keep these lessons separate so that you first get used to flying and know what to look out for when you are flying. There's Manchester Airport. No, it's not. Let's keep turning to our left till Manchester appears, keeping an eye on our altitude and vertical speed indicator. About 30, well, it's only about 25 degrees of turn there. Bank. There we go, there's Manchester Airport. And I'm going to fly. I'm not going to fly over the runway just in case someone wants to take off. I'm on a live server. And think of it in real life, you wouldn't really fly over a runway unless you're coming into land and made a mistake. If you're just flying around, you'll fly sort of in a different... Well, you'll follow ATC, essentially. And if there's no ATC, don't fly over a runway. It could be a very dangerous thing if someone's taking off or wanting to land. So there we go. I've slightly climbed over 1,100 feet now. So in this case, I'm just going to push my yoke down slowly, slightly, get to 1,000 feet, and then maintain straight and level flight. Practice, practice. So I'm keeping my wings straight. When I get to 1,000, I'll level out and stay at 1,000 feet. Now, if I was an instructor, I would pass myself there. A couple of rookie mistakes. Oh, this slight, not really. I'll say, yeah, you're doing a grand job. You're looking at your instruments. You can even get straight on level now. That's fine. I'm going to leave that lesson there, my friends. Practice that if you're new to flight simming, or maybe if you're not new to flight simming, you just want to refresh. Practice those procedures. Get used to your instrumentation within the aircraft. Know what all these are doing and how it affects the aircraft. And, you know, practice straight on level flight, banking, turning, flying in different directions. Next lesson, we'll talk all about landing, so that should be an exciting one. I do hope this is useful for new players and other people who need a refresher. Let me know your thoughts. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. And I'll see you soon. And there we go, we're set up at runway 5 right at Manchester Airport in the Cessna 152. Now, I'm going to remove those visual displays. I actually want to show you first, just in case, I did get a comment on my first video about me showing you all the settings I've got set in. So I'll go to settings, go to controls. Now don't worry about what I'm using. I'm using a Moser throttle and XPC Honeycomb XPC yoke. You could be using something completely different. Don't worry about that. Click on the control that you've got set up, or you want to set up, and just type in this box here, search box. Just start typing in toggle visual. Oops, toggle visual. That's all you need to type in. This command will come up. There's only one command that's related to toggle visual. It's toggle visual assistance display. That's the control you want set up. If you type it in, select your control, type this in, toggle visual. If you've got a button set up, it will come up. It's set up by default on the Xbox controller and PlayStation 5 DualSense, I believe. So it'll show you what button relating to it. I think it's clicking in one of your analog sticks. Not sure if it's left or right. I've got a different button set up. If you don't have one set up a button for toggle visual assistance display. If we go back, resume. That will let you toggle them on or off. Very handy. Very handy to have. I use it all the time. So I do fully advise you have a button set up for that. Weather. Oops. I've got it set on few clouds. If you're in live weather, you might get wind blowing you and it could be difficult to fly around if you're practicing. So practice in something like few clouds or clear skies would be my advice. Get in the cockpit. I'm not going to go over visual familiarization with the aircraft. I did that in video 1. Move my mouse out of the way. So I'll simply go full throttle and take off. I'm going to rotate, remember, around 60 knots in the Cessna 152 with 10 degrees of flaps, which is in by default. So 60 knots, there we go. Rotate, just pull my yoke back in my case just a little bit. When I get about 300 feet above the airport, so it'll be about 500 feet in this case. Go and look at video 1 if that's confusing to you. Around about there. Around about there. I'm going to raise my flaps. The aircraft will want to go nose down. I'm going to trim up. I better cover this one. Trimming. When I'm trimming, I'm not keeping hold of my trim control. Go and look at video 1 if that's confusing what trim nose up and trim nose down is. Basically, if I trim nose the aircraft up, it's trimming the nose of the aircraft upwards. Which is giving me lift, basically, with my vertical speed indicator. And if vertical speed's confusing, video 1 will explain all that. Now, I want to climb, in this case, about 1,500 feet. So I've got at least 1,200 feet above the runway. Because I want to come back and land at this runway. Runway 23 left. Which will mean I'll have to turn to around about 24 degrees. That's fine. So keep all that in mind. So trimming. I'm dabbing the trim to trim my nose up or down. I've got a climb at the moment, and it's a good climb. It's about 500 feet per minute, as you can see there, about a 5. So I'll get to 1,500, maintaining my heading, current heading. Now, how's my RPM? I just want to bring back my throttle a little bit so I stay within that green arc of the RPM reading. I covered that in video 1 again. A little bit less throttle there. I don't need to go too fast here. About 90 knots is fine. There we go. Now, I need to trim up. So I'm dabbing my trim controls I've got set up for my trim. Just clicking them once, basically. Clicking my trim nose up. So I start to climb rather than descend. See, I'm slightly descending there by my vertical speed indicator. Dabbing that trim control just so I'm just maintaining my heading as well. There you go. I'm just dabbing it. If I hold that trim setting that I've got set up, I'll show you this while I'm climbing. I'm going to hold it down. Look, it goes out of control. This means I'm climbing too much. If I hold it down, I'm going to descend too much. So I've got to dab them, click your trim, so that you either climb or descend at a controlled rate. There we go. Coming up to 1,500 feet. Hope that makes sense with trim. Trim just takes a bit of practice. There's no two ways. It took me a bit of practice when I was getting used to it. But I'm just clicking the trim, dabbing it, rather than holding it down. Now, I know Manchester from video 1 is about 256 feet above sea level. So I'm taking that into consideration. Right, there we go. Just dabbing my trim so I maintain my altitude. And I'm going to turn back towards Manchester Airport. I'm going to click on those visual assistances, the button I showed you before, so that when I get around to Manchester, it should show me. It's around 240 degrees, isn't it? I need to turn here. So looking at my compass, looking at my altitude whilst I'm turning, and looking at my vertical speed indicator to see whether I'm climbing or descending. Let's do a little bit of a descent. About that altitude's fine, in fact, but so I can maintain it there, just over 1,500 feet. As long as you're around 1,200, 1,300 feet, between 1,200 1,500 feet in a GA aircraft, it's fine. Now, there's Manchester. Let me just active pause it there. Now, you can see next to the runway, I'll show you this one first, and then I'll show you a runway without PAPI lights to challenge you. Get used to this one first. You can see the PAPI lights there. Basically, it's a configuration at the moment of 4 white and 1 red. I believe these are reflective, so depending on your altitude of your aircraft, these will reflect in certain configurations. You want a configuration of 2 white and 2 red. That means you've got a good approach, a good PAPI light approach to the runway. If it's 3 white, it means I'm too high. If it's 4 white, it means I'm too high again. If it's 3 red, at the moment it's 3 white, but if this was 3 red, I'm too low, I need to climb. If it's 4 red, I'm really low, I need to climb. You're probably best being a little bit high on the approach than low, as I am here. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to unpause the sim, and I'm going to get my aircraft into a configuration where I've got 2 white showing and 2 red. Or ideally, that's where I want to be. I can remove those visualizations now. I've got the airport in sight. And I also want to start getting my aircraft down to flaps range. So I'm still in an active pause just while I explain this. Going to reduce my throttle so I get within this white taper on the speed ribbon. Better explain that a bit better. This white mark around the speed there, that's telling you what range, what speed you want to be at. It's about 85 knots, isn't it? What speed you want to be at before you start deploying flaps. When you're coming into land, you want to stay within that range. So that needle wants to be within this range. Take your time with that. I'm not going to rush. Unpause the sim. Bring the throttle back now, so I get within that flaps range. Looking ahead of me, I'm high at the moment, so I just need to come down. I'm descending because I'm bringing my throttle down anyway. There you go, I'm getting near to that flaps range. That's good enough. Once you get here, it's good enough for stage 1 flaps. Oops, 10 degrees of flaps. I'll do that with my controller from now on. My mouse has fallen off my... So I'll have to do it from my controller. But I'm going to go to stage 2 flaps in a moment. I'm still high, but I've got a good speed there. Bit less. I'm not using trim now. I'm using my throttle. That's another important point. Active pause again. Hey, I can pick up my mouse while I do that. Oh, it's gone to resume. Never mind. Right, there we go. Active pause. Sorry about that. I'm using throttle to control descent, so I'm not trimming. I'm actually bringing back my throttle, my physical throttle, to make me go down quicker, or increasing it if I need to increase my altitude. That's an important point. Don't trim now. Use your actual throttle to control descent. So I'm a bit high. Oh, get off, mouse. I'm trying to move the mouse so it doesn't confuse you. It doesn't go on controls and confuse you. There we go. So I'm just bringing my throttle down because I need to descend. You can see I'm too high. 4 white. Not doing a great job, but I'll bring in those puppy lights. I'm going to put another notch of flaps in. 20 degrees of flaps, and that'll be okay. It will flare a little bit, the aircraft. Just be aware. There you go. You can see my speed. Look at my speed there. Ideal for coming in. Those puppy lights are coming in as well. 2 white, 2 red. Now I'm a bit low, so I'm going to increase my throttle. And that will make me descend. Climb. So I get... See, I'm too low there. So it's a real balancing act landing with these puppy lights. You don't need to be perfect as long as you can see the runway ahead of you. Come on, puppy lights, come back in. There you go. 1 white. Let's get it 2 white, please. Then I can bring that throttle back again. Speed is still okay. I can see my speed just over 60 knots, about 70 knots. Come on, puppy lights, do me a favour. Come back in. I'm not doing it perfect on purpose, just to show you what can happen. Now I've got 2 white, 2 red. Let's try and maintain that. All the way down. Big runway, so you don't need to worry. Long runway, this one. The next one's quite a short one, as I'll show you, just to show you the difference. 2 white, 2 red. 3 white, bit high now. Let's bring that throttle back. In fact, right now, I'm coming over the runway. Ignore the puppy lights. Take a look at where you want to land. I want to land just after those numbers. Bring in my throttle back. And then flare. Pull back your controller gently so you come down on a gentle landing on the runway. That will do. And then you can come off the runway. You can use the taxiways, but I'll just come off the runway here as I'm on a live server, so people may want to land. And it's good practice to vacate the runway. When you've landed, let's just stop the aircraft. I'll do this. You meant to bring up your flaps when you landed, but I just, as I'm teaching you, bring up your flaps. You can use a controller, have a button set up for bringing up your flaps, but raise your flaps when you've landed. Put on your parking brake. And there we go, that was a puppy light landing. Not perfect, but as you see, it was a balancing act. I was talking and describing this. I can do that a lot better when I'm doing it on my own. But practice it. Try and get 2 white, 2 red all the way down. And when you're over the runway, ignore the puppy lights and just land gently, like I kind of did there. Let me show you a different runway without puppy lights and a different type of approach. Okay, let's show you landing at a different airport without puppy lights. Now, I'm in a different aircraft. I'm in the Cessna 182Q. Link to my review of this down in the description. It's available for both Xbox and PC, and hopefully the PlayStation 5 when that fully releases. I would hope this aircraft comes out. Doesn't really matter if you fly this aircraft or not. I'm just showing you a different type of aircraft similar to the Cessna 152. If we look at the dials there, you can see we've still got the white taper on the speed ribbon where we should be for flaps range. So we want to slow down to around here before deploying flaps. Got our altitude indicator, vertical speed indicator, RPM. As you can see there, I'm just about in the green. Just going to bring my throttle back slightly, just so I'm fully in the green, and try and maintain straight and level flight. So, let's show you. I'm going to bring up the EFB. I'll do it from the top menu here. I do have a button bound, but it doesn't matter. There's Barton Airport. Let me just active pause that. Barton Airport is just behind me, so I'm going to do a turn around 180 degrees. To line up with Barton Airport. This one, if I click on it, show more info. So if that went too fast for you, I just clicked on the airport. left click, show more info. It will give me the layout of the runways, what direction they're running in. As you can see, you've got runway 20, runway 2, they're next to each other in fact, runway 26 and runway 8 right. If I click on any of these, which runway will I be landing on? Probably 2's, looks like runway 2 or runway 8 from the looks of things, because I'm going to do a 180. I can tell that because if I come down to my compass, if I do a 180 turn, it's roughly going to be runway 8, isn't it, in fact? Possibly, or runway 2. We'll find out. If I just click on one of them, it will give you the type of runway. Oh, it's not giving me the type there. Is it going to give me the type? One of them, there, grass. Click on one of these, it will give you the type. They're all grass runways. If it's grass, going one direction, the other direction is going the other way, so it's the same type of runway. So click on the top ones to find out what type of runway it is. Grass, 69 feet altitude, and it gives you the dimensions, the length and width of the runway, and the heading you want to be in as well. So there you go. We're going to come down to about 80 degrees for runway 8, for example. So I hope that makes sense. You just left click on the actual airport marker, go to more info, and it'll probably be in general. Go to runways, and if these boxes are closed, which they normally will be, there you go, boxes are closed. Let's close all the boxes. They'll be like that. Just click on each of the runways. Probably click on the top one to find out the type, but then it just shows you the direction. So I know basically what direction I should be flying in to land on those runways. Hope that makes sense. Go and re-watch that part if that's not clear. So I can unpause the sim. Turn around. I'll do a 180 now. Try and keep a sort of balanced turn as I'm turning. I'm about 1,500 feet above the altitude of the runway. That's where I want to be. So that's a good altitude. I'm also going to turn on my visualizations. It will give me a visualization. Especially handy. I still use it, to be honest. Whether you're new or not, this is very handy in flight simming. There you go, it'll show me where the runway is. It's just there. Oh no, it's not. No, you see? That's handy with the visualization. That's a different runway. We're not going to land there. We want Barton to come up, which I believe is just ahead there. That would make sense. And there's Dragon Fin. There's no, it's Manchester. Ah, well, we'll keep turning. If you're not sure, bring up your EFB map. You can see where you are in relation. Yeah, I still need to keep turning to the left. So let's keep doing that. Keep turning to the left. Maintaining my altitude. And I'm going to start bringing back my throttle to get into that flaps range as I'm turning there. Want to get around that white taper. Slightly different aircraft. It's just showing you a different aircraft and a different type of landing. Should be coming up. Oh, I've passed it. Not doing a good job for you there. So I've just brought up my EFB again to see where my aircraft is in relation to that airport. There it is. Barton. That should be Barton. Or is that Manchester? Well, that was Manchester. Barton. There we go. So we've got it. And if I just zoom my view forward, I've just used my middle mouse button. Can I see the runways already? Not quite. I think I can. I think those are the runways there. So I'll just reset my cockpit view. I will do a video about handy control bindings in this series. So don't worry about that, but just use your middle mouse button by default to zoom in. So have a mouse attached. I think there's ways you can do it on the controller. I believe these are the runways running this way. Looks like it. I can see runway numbers. That's the runway there, yes. So I've got the airport in sight. I can turn off those visual markers now. And altitude's okay. Let's just hide that AFB so I can see what my speed is. Need to slow down a bit more, bring my throttle back and bringing it back about 15% there. Just a bit more, gradually reducing it till I get to within the flaps range. As I'm doing that, I'm trimming up to maintain level flight. So my vertical speed indicator, slight descent, but that's okay. There you go, I'm in flaps range. Stage 1 flaps. 10 degrees of flaps. And here's the runways coming up. I'm just going to line myself up, so I just need to come to the left and then to the right. Don't want to descend anymore, so I'm just going to trim up, and I'm going to stop using trim when I'm configured. Now, what I mean by that is, when I feel I don't need to use trim any longer, I'm going to use my throttle then to control my descent. So there you go, I'm trimmed up, nicely trimmed. From now on, I'm just using throttle to control descent. Let me just line up properly with this runway. I actually put a little bit more trim in there as it was still descending. And now I'm going to stop using trim and use throttle. If I need to speed up or slow down, I'm using throttle. Right, my friends, let me just get you a picture there and active pause. I'm going to land on the right runway, so there's left and right there. I think that's... We'll get closer, but that could be runway 2 or runway 8. It's one of them. What I'm going to do, I'm going to aim, visually envision the nose of my aircraft touching down on that number at the threshold of the runway. There's runway numbers for a GA aircraft. It's fine to touch down around about on the numbers there. You don't want to touch down before because there could be landing lights. So around on the numbers, I know that's the runway. So I'm envisioning... Let's get outside to show you a visual representation of that. Yeah, the nose of this aircraft to touch down around about here. There's no two ways about this. This takes practice. Let me unpause it. I'm going to put another notch of flaps in. I can do it from here. 20 degrees of flaps, and that's nice and slow now. Now, the aircraft will flare up when you do that. So I'm just going to bring my throttle back a little bit so I start descending. And I'm just envisioning touching down on the nose there. Let me just move my mouse out of the way in case that gets confusing. There we go. So hands on the controller. Bringing that throttle back to control the descent. As you can see by my speed ribbon. Active pause again. Take your time with this. But I can see I'm at a good speed there to come and touch down. Ideally, I want to be probably about 70 knots. But I can control that as I get closer to the runway. There you go. Bit more reduction in the throttle. It's only quite a short runway, so it's a good runway to show you this. Just got my hands on my throttle and yoke while I'm descending. And, okay, I touch down just after. And then flare a little bit. And then touch down. Oh, a bit of a bounce, but never mind. And then brake. Hopefully I don't run off the end of the runway. Like I said, it's quite a short runway that, but it gives you a good example. And then I can bring my aircraft round. And then I'm starting, and then probably come off the runway. In fact, in real life, you don't want to stay on a runway. This type of runway, there's not many taxiways. I think there's one just ahead here. Just here. When you've landed, bring up your flaps. So I'm just using my control to do that. There we go, I can come off to the right there. I have to keep my throttle up a bit on this runway as it's... There we go. A bit grassy, so, you know, the Flight Sim 2024 does take into account what kind of service you're on. There you go, so I'm on... Oh, am I on another runway? Let's just come off that. Might be confusing one, this. This is a grass runway. That could be another runway I've just entered. So I'll come off the runways altogether. There we go, I'm put on my parking brake, that'll be fine. Yeah, that was another runway. As you can see, quite a confusing layout for this airport. There you go. Practice, practice. That's probably a more difficult runway. Lovely airport, isn't it? more difficult runway to land on. In fact, while I'm there, I'm just going to pop out my aircraft. Probably take a quick wander around. That will do. Yeah, I'll go and take a little tour of this airport. I think I quite like it. Practice, practice, my friends. Let's get back in the aircraft there so I don't confuse you. I do hope that you get the hangs of landing. Try on things like Manchester Airport if you're following this tutorial. A big airport with PAPI lights. Practice that. Then come and practice on these small ones. Aiming, as you can see, very small runway these. But aim for the beginning, the threshold, the numbers basically of the runway. So I aimed for there, landed just over that, and I got down fine. But you should be fine. Just keep an eye on your speeds as you're coming down. You don't want to be in a fast range. If I was 120 or 100 knots on approach there, that would have been very dangerous. I probably would have gone off the end of the runway. But there you go. Yeah, let's give it a practice. Do let me know your thoughts. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it and it's been helpful to you. Subscribe for more videos in this course on the way. And I'll see you soon. Okay, so for this video we're going to be using another default aircraft. It's the Cessna 172. The C172, you should find it in your aircraft list, no matter what platform you're using. The reason for that is because it uses Autopilot. It has glass cockpit displays, different to the other aircraft that we tried in video 1 and 2, the Cessna 152, which had dials. Now all the readings are done on a computer screen in effect. As you can see, it's got a couple of G1000s. That's what these Garmin system are called. And they're fully Autopilot capable. So let's talk a little bit about Autopilot and what it does. First thing we should talk about is Autopilot Master. The Autopilot engage, disengage, as you can see there when I hover over it. It does exactly what it's meant to do. It engages the autopilot when you press it. There we go. Autopilot has come on. When you press it again, it will disengage. And it's essentially turning your autopilot on and off, your autopilot computer. Think of it, the way I like to think of it like turning your Xbox or PlayStation 5 on, or your PC. You're turning it on. You need to give it another command before the autopilot does what you want it to do. So you can turn it on, autopilot's on. Yeah, the aircraft's thinking, yeah, you've turned it on. What do you want me to do? So you have to give it further commands like you would with your PlayStation, Xbox or PC before it actually does anything. You're just turning it on or off. So that's what that button is. It's just engaging the autopilot computer or disengaging it when you turn it off. I'm not going to go through, as you can see, with this aircraft, Cessna 172, it's got things like heading mode, navigation, approach mode, vertical speed, flight level change, flight directors, altitude hold, vertical navigation hold, back course mode, and it's got a couple of buttons here that help you alter, which I'll show you later. These are a couple of buttons. So lots of different buttons. That can be over complex for you. Don't worry. The ones we're going to concentrate on mostly are your Autopilot Master, which I showed you before, heading and navigation mode, which will let you follow a course if you have one set up, which I do. I've got a simple course between Manchester and Birmingham. We'll talk about that in a moment. I guess one thing I should tell you, I'm down in this screen. It's like, how did you do that, Huddison? How did you get down there in these screens and I could switch between them? Well, that's with, let me just show you that first. That's with, go to settings. So settings, controls. Nice and slow for new people. Keyboard. If you have a keyboard connected, have it on the basic. These should be the default profiles, 2024 transversal and planes. If you do that, using Shift and F1 will take you to the first screen. Let's go back. And Shift and F2 will Shift and F2. Oh, let me just make sure that I've got Flight Sim connected there. Just a second. Why did it not do that for me? Shift and 2, not F2. Sorry. Shift and 1 will take you to the first screen. Shift and 2, so the number 2 on your keyboard. Not F2, not F1. 1 and 2. So Shift and 1, Shift and 2 will move you between these screens. You can do it that way. I've got a on my controller, and you'll have to check where this will be on your own specific controller, especially if you're using a gamepad or something of that sort. On my Honeycomb XPC yoke, basically, you can see here on the left handle, moving that hat switch down takes me to previous pilot position. So if you're not sure what you got assigned for previous pilot position, let's just click out of that. Go back. Save them back, because it just takes a little time when you do that. So let's go to controllers again. I'm on my controller, whatever controller you're using. In the search bar here, just type in previous. Previous. Pilot. Previous pilot. If you just type in previous pilot, it will show you what you got bound for previous pilot position. So that's how I do it from a controller. Probably easier if you have a keyboard connected. You can just go Shift and 1. So there we go. So let's talk about first the heading mode. What does this do? Well, heading. If you've got a heading mode, you're going to have a heading knob. I've not seen an aircraft that has a heading mode select without having the heading knob. If you look on your compass, this will be different for different aircraft. Try it with the Cessna 172 first, and then transfer it to other more complex aircraft. That's the way I learnt, and that's the way I did it. On this part of the compass, basically the compass on your G1000, you can see that blue mark. That's your heading bug. Wherever that heading bug is, when you take off, so if I take off in this direction, 231 degrees, and put it into autopilot and heading mode, the aircraft's going to turn and follow where that heading bug is. In fact, I can show you. Let me just get back to my normal screen. I've got my yoke connected. I'll turn autopilot on. I'll turn heading mode on. You can try it on the ground. Look, the yoke will move to the right. That's where my heading bug is. So it's trying to follow that heading bug. I've got controls set up to move my heading bug, just to do it a bit quicker. If I move it to the left over here, watch what the yoke does. It's going to try and follow it to the left. Give it a second. It will follow it to the left. There we go. You can see it's slowly going. And if you're in the air, basically, you're just going to turn to the left or right, depending where that heading bug is. So that's essentially what it does. If you're using the actual knobs in the aircraft, I can move mouse up on this knob. If you're using a controller, I believe it's lock on with A for the Xbox controller. I'm not sure what it is on the PlayStation 5, and you can use your analog stick to move the heading bug once you've locked onto this dial here. But I can move the controller left or right, and if I'm up in the air, and I'll show you this later, I can move that left or right, and the aircraft will follow whichever direction. So if I want to come to a heading of 200 degrees, and you can see it lit up there, heading 200. That's your heading mode command. So if I've got autopilot on and heading mode on, the aircraft will turn left to follow that heading of 200 degrees. Quite simple. Yeah, I don't need to explain more than that. It will just follow wherever you've got your heading bug if you're in heading mode. So there we go. That's heading mode. How about navigation mode, nav mode? Well, if you've got a course set up, I'm going to press Shift and 2. I've got a simple course between Manchester and Birmingham. If you're close to this magenta line here, let's zoom in, and I can range here with this dial here. If I'm close, the aircraft is close to that magenta line. If I click on, go Shift and 1 again just to put it back, autopilot and nav mode, I can do it now. And nav mode, it won't do anything. It will say GPS mode here. It's like a GPS in your car, isn't it? It's going to follow whatever mode you've got set up on your GPS, whatever your course you've got set up. So as long as I'm close to that magenta line, and I'm going to show you this later, it will lock onto it and go into GPS mode. If you're not close enough, that GPS won't be green. It's green because we're close to that magenta line at the moment. If we're not close enough, it will showing white, I believe. I'll show you that in the air later. Then when you get close, it will lock on and go fully green, which means you're on. You're close enough to your magenta line, so you're locked onto your course, and it will follow the course, whatever course you've got set in. So nice and simple there, people. Autopilot will just engage the autopilot computer, turn it on and off. I've got it on at the moment. If I put it into heading mode, it will follow wherever my heading bug is. And I can move that heading bug around to make the aircraft follow whatever direction I've got that set to. If I turn the autopilot computer on and press nav mode, navigation mode, it will follow whatever course, as long as I'm close to that magenta line, I've got set in. All fairly straightforward. Let's continue. Now, before we go for a fly, I just want to show you a couple more things, because I want to climb safely under autopilot to an altitude I'm going to set in. If you've got autopilot functionality, you're going to have an altitude knob, altitude select. This is how you select an altitude for your autopilot to fly to. So you can see nothing's set, and when I move these knobs, you'll see a number in the Cessna 172 here, G1000. If you're using the G1000 in any aircraft, it'll be similar. You'll see a number change up here as soon as I move these knobs. Shall we set an altitude? We're at 260 feet at the moment, above sea level at Manchester. That's correct for Manchester. It's 260 feet above sea level. So shall we climb? Take a look outside. Not many mountains or hills. We can climb to 2,000 feet safely. That should be fine. So, using these knobs, the bigger knob will select your altitude, change it in thousands. The smaller knob will change it in hundreds. Let's use the bigger knob. It adds a bit odd. It first goes to roughly your altitude first. So I'll just mouse up once. It will roughly go to my altitude, which is 260, 300 feet. If it was 240, it would probably go down to 200 feet. I'm nearer to 300 feet. That's just a bit of a ambiguity with the altitude knob in the G1000, or at least in the flight sim, in Flight Sim 2024. I'll move it up again. It should go to 1,300. There you go, 1,300. Move it one more time. It will go to 2,300. I want to get 2,000 feet commanded for my autopilot to climb to. So I can use the smaller knob. Are you following this? Bigger knob 1,000, smaller knob 100. Use it. Just mouse down a couple of times to get it to 2,000. Great. We've got an altitude set in now, what we want our aircraft to climb at under autopilot control. How do we tell our aircraft what speed, what safe speed we want to climb out at? Trouble is, if I take off and press my autopilot, I've got that 2,000 feet set in, as you can see, and say I put it into heading mode, so I put my heading bug to where my aircraft is facing at the moment, 231 degrees. Take off. Say I'm slightly descending when I've engaged autopilot. What's going to happen? It's likely because you've not told the autopilot, you've not given it commands in terms of vertical speed or what speed to climb out at. It's likely just going to continue descending. Conversely, if I was to take off and I had a steep altitude and I was climbing too quickly, I could be in danger of stalling, getting into this red taper here on the speed ribbon, and stalling the aircraft and crashing. So a safe way, and this is the sort of official way, or the proper way to climb out under autopilot control, is using flight level change. It's like, in other words, it's like a speed change, a set speed you want your autopilot to follow when you engage autopilot. That's what flight level change does. Vertical speed acts differently, and I want to show you that later. And that's all we're going to cover in this lesson. But flight level change mode, if I click it on the ground, you can do this on the ground. You do need to have an altitude set for your autopilot to do this. I set one before at 2,000. I'll click the flight level change button, and FLC, flight level change, will come up here. You've got a number that's come up here. It's on 0 at the moment. Now I can type in, using the up and down buttons here, what speed I want my autopilot to stay at when I'm climbing to 2,000 feet. I'm going to keep this simple. 80 knots is a safe speed to climb to 2,000 feet, and it's going to get you there quickly. There's a more official speed, and I don't want to cover it in this lesson because it's going to overcomplicate things. So follow this for now, and then we can address that in a different lesson, perhaps the official speeds and why you want to climb out at certain speeds. But I know 80 knots is a safe speed and a good speed, and it's going to get us to 2,000 feet in no time. So I can alter my flight level change targeted speed, what speed I want my autopilot to climb out at, using these buttons here. So I can use nose up, and I can do that a bit quicker to get it to 80 knots. So I'm just using my left mouse button to get that up to 80 knots quicker. There, we're getting there. 80 knots. There we go. 80 knots. So what will happen now, if I take off, I've got flaps set in, so 300 feet above my altitude here, I'll raise my flaps, stick it into autopilot mode and heading mode to begin with, and I'll do that with you in a moment. The autopilot will auto-configure itself because we've got a flight level change mode command set in. It will auto-configure itself to stay at the speed of 80 knots, assuming you've got enough throttle in, and when you're taking off you really should be at full throttle, which is there, or near it. As long as you've got enough throttle in, it will configure itself for 80 knots and climb to 2,000 feet. It will stay at 80 knots, not below it or above it. It will stay generally at that 80 knot speed, and it will climb you to 2,000 feet carefully, controlled in a controlled manner, so you're not underspeeding, in danger of stalling your aircraft, so you're not climbing too high, or you're not in a descent because you've not set up a flight level change or vertical speed command. Flight level change in this mode, in this case, you've not set it up, so it won't descend. It will actually climb. It will stay at 80 knots, which will raise the nose of the aircraft because we'll be at full throttle, and we'll get to 2,000 feet. Hope you've understood that part. I've tried to go through that thoroughly with you on why it does what it does. As long as you've got enough speed set in, we're going to be full throttle. The nose of the aircraft will pitch up because it will try and maintain 80 knots. If we didn't have 80 knots, say we were climbing at 110 feet, the nose would be slightly lower. It will make sense once we get in the air, so try and get your head around there. Okay, with that all covered, autopilot basics, heading, navigation mode, which I covered before, and flight level change, what speed we want our autopilot to climb out at to get to 2,000 feet. Shall we put this to the test and go for a fly? Okay, so let's start this flight from the main screen, the main home screen. We'll go to free flight. Make sure you got the Cessna 172. If you click on your aircraft, go back there from free flight, just go to your top left and click on the aircraft symbol if you don't have it selected. And you should see it under C. Remember, this is alphabetical, so it'll go from A to C. A, B, C rather. I've got a few different aircraft there. It should be there by default, the Asobo Studio Cessna 172 with the G1000. So I've got that selected. Following this tutorial, click on Manchester on the world map and go set as departure. Click on Birmingham, EGBB. You might need to zoom in and out if you can't see it. We can. Click on it, set as arrival. And that's it. We've just got a route set up from Manchester to Birmingham. Let's go fly. I'm going to start flight and keep you here, just to show you what we need to do with the aircraft once we get in there. So, come on. I was just in that. Yeah, better. I was going to say, don't be dilly-dallying there. Right, there we go. And click on ready to fly. And Garmin seat screens will have to start up. You'll have to click on the enter button here. Right at the bottom, there's an enter button on your right G1000 just to get the map showing. Remember, with that range, we can range in and out. I've just moused down to range in a little bit. This will align the, the systems. So just give it a second. We're at the right altitude, which is a good start. And then we'll set the aircraft up. And it gives you, because we've got a course set up, it will give us some information here. Where we're taking off from, where we're going to land at, and the distance to that airport, Birmingham. Just under 58 nautical miles. There we go. Screen starting now. It just takes a moment. So we'll set up what we set up before. Remember, we used that altitude knob. Going to mouse up on it once. It will go to roughly our altitude at the moment. Mouse up again on the thousands, the big knob. To get it to, and again, 2,300. Mouse down on the small knobs, intervals of 100, you can see there, to get it down to 2,000 feet. We move our heading bug, I'll do it from here, just mousing down in this case. To sync our heading bug, I want this heading to match that. So when we take off, we're just flying the runway heading, basically. 2, 3, 1, perfect. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take off. I'm in flaps 1 configuration. 10 degrees of flaps you can see there. And you can take a look outside the aircraft to see that we've got some flaps just to help us on our takeoff roll. Help to give us a nice takeoff. Climb to 500 feet. It'll be roughly 300 feet above our current altitude and raise our flaps. Then stick it into autopilot mode. It's one thing. I'll just press Shift and 1 on my keyboard. Flight level change, like I showed you before. I want to climb out safely. So I can do this on the ground. I've got an altitude set in. You need that in first. Then click on your FLC button. That will come up. And like we did before, if I just hold down... Oh, never mind. I'm just clicking very quick to get that to 80 knots. 80 knots will be fine. And that's all we're setting up. Just like we did before on our autopilot panel. So, quickly tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go full throttle. So, move the view down, full throttle. Release our parking brake. About 60 knots, 55 to 60 knots. We've got flaps on. You see the speed build up here. 55 to 60 knots. We'll pull back gently on our controller to take off. About 500 feet altitude. I'll raise my flaps. Click on autopilot and heading. So it's going to follow. Turn the autopilot on. Follow our heading, which we've just set in, 231 degrees. Our current heading. And because we've got a flight level change mode speed setting, it will maintain 80 knots and climb us to 2,000 feet. Just pause there while you get your head around that. Take your time. But this is quite straightforward and basic stuff in terms of autopilot. If you're a new pilot, it might seem a little bit complex. Remember before from our previous lessons, I'm going to take off those waypoint markers. We don't need them. Remove them. So it's toggle visual assistance display. I showed that in previous videos. The course is linked down below in the description in case you've not seen that course. Do go and watch those lessons first. Get used to get familiar with aircraft. Let's go full throttle. So I'm going to go full throttle, release the parking brake, maintain center line like we did before. Watching our speed here. Watch the speed build up here. There we go. I'm going to take off around, rotate, take off around 60 knots. That's fine. 50 knots. 60 knots. I can feel the aircraft already wants to take off. Pulling back gently on my controller. Using trim like we did before just to make sure. That's our vertical speed reading in the G1000. You can see it's above, which means we're climbing. If it's below, we are descending. There we go. Getting up to 500 feet. Slowly, just a little bit of trim just to keep that climb going. There, raise my flaps. Now the aircraft, well, all you need to do here now, autopilot and heading mode. Look, the aircraft's... I've not altered my throttle, but the aircraft's trying to maintain 80 knots because we put that flight level change command in. It's now changed to 79 knots. Let's put that back to 80. I don't know why that happened. Maybe I clicked something. 80 knots. So it's trying to maintain 80 knots and it's doing a good job. And it's climbing us because we're at full throttle to 2,000 feet quite rapidly, isn't it? We're going to get to that 2,000 feet. When we reach 2,000 feet, you'll notice ALT, it means altitude has been achieved. We'll lock in on green here, where that flight level change is at the moment. You'll see that. I'll keep you there. Let me just actually pause that. I just don't want to go too fast so that I'm losing people. So all we did, we took off, as you saw. Raised our flaps when we were 300 feet above this, our current altitude. Then we just clicked on autopilot and heading. We had our flight level change speed set in, so the autopilot is climbing to that, is maintaining 80 knots and climbing us to 2,000 feet. Just unpause it. Did I hear somebody behind me? I'm on sim update 4 at the moment, beta. Oh, there is. Ah, there we go. Don't usually see people on the beta. Okay, so hello if you're watching this video. You are on the video. Well done. So there we go, we're getting to 2,000 feet. Watch for the change here. And then flight level change will disappear because it's now reached the altitude. So there you go, 8 LTS. And I think that will just lock in as out once fully golden green out, which means altitude has been achieved. It's not going to maintain 80 knots now because we've reached our altitude. So that flight level change mode command now is redundant. We've reached the altitude. So whatever you got your throttle set, remember from lesson 1, we want to keep that speed, RPM, in the green. I'm just going to pull my throttle back slightly to achieve that. There we go, roughly about there. And speed is fine. Now, we're flying away from that magenta line. Shift and 2. I want to get back there. So, that's the left of my aircraft. I'm flying this way. If we zoom in a bit more with the range, you can see that. Aircraft's flying in this direction. That's my left. That's my right. I want to come to my left to get towards that magenta line, don't I? So I'm in heading mode. That's the mode we set ourselves in. I'm going to bring myself then to the left. Use the heading knob. I'll come roughly 180 southerly direction. Actually, just beyond southerly because we want to get shift and 2. We want to come in this direction. So it'll be about 160. Let's put it on 160. That'll be a good thing. Shift and 1. Using the, so on this number here, get it to 160 and the autopilot will follow that. So you can see the autopilot following whatever we're setting our heading to. 160. There we go. And it's turning to 160 degrees. You can see on this now we're getting closer to that magenta line. We can already click now. We're in heading mode, yes, but we can click navigation mode. Watch what happens when I click nav mode. I'm not close enough to that magenta line, so GPS is white. Once we're in range, once we're in sensor range essentially of the G1000 of that magenta line, this will go green and will be locked onto our nav course and will follow the course in the direction we set from Manchester to Birmingham. So it will always follow in the direction you set. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to move my heading a little bit more to the left so I get closer to that magenta line quicker. Let's put it on, I don't know, 110 degrees. Just mousing down. Give this a try, people. Follow along. Pause if you need to. Pause the video while you catch up if you're very new. That's fine. That's how a lot of us learnt, in fact, from each other. There we go. I'm now getting towards. Watch what happens when we get within range. It'll just be a little bit longer. GPS will go green, which means it's locked on to the course. But if you're in the heading mode, you can always preempt, like I did there. I put it into nav mode. I preempt it so that when we get closer to the magenta line, it's going to lock onto it. And you can do that with the G1000 and many autopilot capable aircraft. There we go. And you let me know, would you like to see this in a different type of aircraft? I can't guarantee that it'll be an aircraft that you own, but it'll be a different type just to show you a different autopilot computer. Let me know. Not airline, it's more GA aircraft. I think we need to climb. Look, there's hills ahead. Oh! That's a good point. Say you're flying in that direction. I'm going to turn nav mode off for a moment. I've got it in pause mode, don't worry, but I'm going to turn nav off. So now we're just going to stay in the heading mode. I think I'm going to get too close to those mountains. I'm going to command it to climb. Let's unpause it. I can use my altitude knobs to increase what I want my autopilot to climb to. So I'm using the smaller knob, mousing up, to climb to 2,700 feet. The autopilot's not doing anything, look. I've got it set in, it's flashing, but I'm staying at 2,000 feet. You have to command it further to climb to that. So in the G1000, you've got a vertical speed button. We can click that, left click it. Vertical speed will come up and a number here. And a number here. You can use these up, down buttons again to either climb, to go up, down if you want to descend. We want to go up to 2,700. So let's click up. And you can, every time you click up, it will increase in increments of 100 feet per minute. So I'm climbing to 2,700 feet at 100 feet per minute using vertical speed. Let's increase that to 400 feet per minute, just to give us a faster climb. You can see there, vertical speed, it's got a reading of how much vertical speed you're doing per minute. It's 400 feet. And we're going to get to 2,000, increase a bit more. To 600 feet per minute. Just increase your RPM, your throttle a little bit while you're climbing as well. Try and stay roughly around 100 knots in the climb there. I mean, we're safe enough speed there, but we're going to try and stay at that speed while we're climbing. 600 feet per minute. It's climbing to 2,700 feet. Active pause. Did you understand what I did there? I set a new altitude, what I want the autopilot to climb to. It didn't do anything because you have to command it further. Once you're at altitude, you're safe to use vertical speed because you've got a good speed generally on your aircraft. So you click the vertical speed button, VS will come up, and then you command it to increase to climb, or if you want to descend, use the down. Shall we show you a descent actually using vertical speed, just so we get fully rehearsed with it? I'm going to come, actually I'm going to click on nav again to lock on to my nav course. GPS, are we close enough yet? We should be. There we go, GPS has now gone green, it's locked on. So it's going to follow, you'll see the aircraft will turn and follow the course directly we've got set in. Watch what happens. And when that does happen, we can probably decrease our vertical speed slightly. Well, there's a couple of hills here, as you can see. And more people. Hey, it's great to see people around in Sim Update 4 Beta. Skies are usually empty. Okay, I want to climb down to 2,500. I don't need to be at 2,700. So altitude is now gone green, which means we're at our altitude. So I can use the altitude select to change this number to 2,500. That's what I want to climb down to. It's not going to do anything until we command it, just like before. Similar. Vertical speed. Click that. VS will come up. And we can now click. Well, it's actually going down in -100s. I didn't set that in, so that just might be automatic. But I can command it using the down button to climb down by 300 feet per minute. Descend 300 feet per minute to 2,500. I hope you got that, people. Get your head around that, and that's where I'm going to leave it because it can get over complex otherwise. What I do want to do is come back and show you how you can essentially, let me just bring that throttle back, as you can see, over speeding. How you can essentially land using autopilot, using approach mode when configuring. There's a few more things we have to configure for that to get onto an ILS for a runway so we can land under autopilot control as well, or near enough land. I'll come back and show you that in a different video. Get used to those basics first and let me know how you get on. I'm going to leave it there, my friends. Give this video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. And I'll see you soon. So before we get into Flight Sim 2024, let me just explain what ILS is. With this rather crude drawing, I'm afraid. I did this drawing in Microsoft Paint, not the aircraft, I got that from elsewhere, but this part is all me. I didn't want to get copyright on my video, that's all. That's the runway, that's the ILS beam. In fact, there's two beams. You've got the glide slope beam for an ILS. ILS is a piece of equipment on a runway. If a runway, and I'll go into this in more detail later, if a runway has ILS equipment, essentially, so capabilities, you'll have an ILS beam going upwards, emanating from the runway and slanting upwards, maybe in a slightly different configuration, but you know, a different angle, but it's sloping upwards from the runway like that. You'll have a different ILS beam which I've not shown here, but I'll explain later. That's your localizer beam, so that you can line your aircraft up with the runway itself so that you're flying directly towards your runway. I didn't want to overcomplicate things and draw two different beams. Perhaps the one that's important here for our purposes is the glide slope ILS beam. And the idea is you want to bring your aircraft onto this beam here, next picture, so that you can capture the ILS. So that remember before, let me just show you, you're approaching the ILS at a certain altitude, which I'll also explain a recommended altitude to approach an ILS. I'll explain that later. You're approaching it here. The idea is to fly onto it to capture the ILS beam. So eventually you're catching it. And then, with the use of Autopilot, this is actually my Cessna 172, which I'll show you a practical demonstration of this later. You've captured the ILS beam, the ILS diamond in this case, in the Cessna 172. Let me just slow down a wee bit there, because this might be for new players. In this configuration, we're approaching the ILS beam. So in the Cessna 172 itself, the ILS diamond will be above your current position, which is here. Just in this demonstration, we're approaching it, so the ILS diamond will be above here. And the idea is, as we approach it, you'll see that diamond move down to center. This is above, that's below for the ILS. If it's here, the diamond, you're above, the ILS is above you, you're below it. If the diamond's all the way down here, you're above the ILS and you've got to catch up. That's not a good place for the diamond to be. You always want to be approaching it so that the diamond is above you, which will be similar to this, at a recommended altitude, which I'll explain later. And the idea is then that you'll capture the ILS here. You'll actually intercept the ILS beam, so you capture it. And with the use of Autopilot, which I'll show you later, we'll press the approach mode. Well, we'll have approach mode activated before this point, in fact. But whilst in approach mode, it will capture the ILS. You'll have a GS, glide slope indicator here, locked in green, which means you captured it. And your aircraft will descend under autopilot to bring us down under that ILS. I hope I've explained that simply enough. If that's confused you, just take this away. You want to be approaching the ILS glide slope indicator beam here. You'll have another beam, which I'll explain later how to get that to line up with the runway. That's a more simple one, but I'll show you that later. But once we're approaching the runway, we want to approach this ILS beam. If your aircraft is on this side, I've not done a picture of that one, but if your aircraft is over here, the ILS beam, diamond will be down here, which means you'll have to descend, which is very dangerous. It's a dangerous practice. You don't want that configuration. You want this configuration approaching the ILS, so the ILS is above you. And then ideally, you want to capture the ILS under autopilot approach mode, and it will glide you down to the runway. Go and rewatch that part if you need to, but I think that's fairly straightforward. Let's jump into Flight Sim, and I'll show you this in practice. Okay, let's start off from the main menu for this flight. Just go to Free Flight. If you're going to follow this tutorial, follow my example, and then you can practice elsewhere. I'm going to scroll over the UK. For the aircraft, we're going to use the Cessna 172. It's a default aircraft for all versions of Flight Sim 2024, so PlayStation 5, Xbox, or PC. So there we go. Cessna 172 Skyhawk by Asobo Studios. Select that with the G1000. Just put that time of day back so we get good daylight hours. Scroll over the UK. And we're going to take off from Manchester, so click on Manchester, EGCC, says departure. Right, I need to scroll in a bit, and then you want to get to EGPP, only a short flight, Liverpool Airport, EGPP, Liverpool John Lennon. Click on it, set as arrival. And that's all we need to do. We're going to take off from one of the runways here and head directly into Liverpool. It's actually pretty much on our nose there, which is great. So, flight conditions. Actually, let me show you what I've got for flight conditions. I've got it on few clouds, just in case weather's not so good. I've just turned multiplayer off for this flight. And there we go. So, turn multiplayer off, just go off group only. And let's go fly. Okay, so in this case, it's plonked us on runway 23 left at Manchester Airport, which is fine. So maybe you want to put yourself at Manchester Airport 23 left as well. There you can see Manchester Airport. I'll just toggle those visual assistances off. We're in Flaps 1 configuration, that's great. Just jump inside the cockpit. Now, let me just bring up, I've got Chase Plane installed, linked to my review. It's only for PC at the moment, I'm afraid. Just lets me toggle between different windows and it has different effects, which is great. How do we find these ILSs? Well, you have to tune in your nav frequencies. Let me just explain what nav is first. It's a radio frequency that will let you lock on, in this case, to an ILS. It'll let you lock on to other things as well, but we're just concentrating on ILSs in this case. It'll let you dial in a frequency, and then this is basically your standby frequency, and that's your active frequency. Nav 1, Nav 2 in the Cessna 172. We'll just be using Nav 1 in this video. That's the standby, and when I move these knobs, it's the standby frequency that will alter. That's your active, what's actually active in the aircraft at the moment. We want to find a frequency for the ILS for Liverpool Airport. So the oops, did I just click a button there? Sorry, I think I did. Best way to do this is by your EFB. So I'll bring up the EFB. By the way, I'm going to be using buttons combinations, and I'm also going to be using Autopilot. Go and look at my other videos in the fundamentals of flight simming, because I'm not going to explain every procedure like Autopilot, you know, heading mode, nav mode, and goodness knows what. I did that in the previous video, in fact, in this series. So go and watch them first, and then come back to this one, would be my recommendation. So there we go. EFB open. I'll just hide that route page by clicking route. That's Manchester. And as you can see, it's going to take us over to the Liverpool Airport. See, ILS at Liverpool we want to find out. So what we'll do, if you're on Xbox and PlayStation 5, perhaps have a mouse. Get a wired mouse and attach it to your Xbox or PlayStation 5. It's going to make navigating the EFB a whole lot easier. I'm going to click on EGPP, left click, and go to show more info. So, left click, more info. And I think I was just practicing this before. It'll be on this page, general, when you do that, more info. We want to click on runways, where it was, and that will be closed. And as you can see, we'll be approaching, if you're following this example, we're approaching runway 27. So I want to click open on runways, runway 27 with this drop down menu. It'll give us all the specifications of the runway, the heading dimensions, elevation above sea level. It will also, if it's got an ILS, it will show you a frequency. By the way, I'll click on runway 9. You can see it shares the same frequency. So if you're coming in from either way, you would tune into the same frequency. That's common practice. And depending what direction you were heading in, it will land you or glide you towards under autopilot, which I'll show you later, down to the runway. If you have the ILS frequency, tune in. But as you can see there, 111.750. So basically 111.75 for our nav radios. That's how we'll tune in to the ILS. So I can tune this in. The smaller knob is the numbers after the decimal for the nav1, the backup frequency. So I want to mouse down to get that to 75. Only has 2 numbers here in the aircraft after the decimal. That's got 3, but there's always a 0. Well, I think every now and again you will get a 5, but there's different ways around that. Not going to go into that in this video. All you need to do for this video is the 75 after the decimal. And before the decimal, the bigger knob, we want to get this one down to 111. 111.750. Once you've got that in, you can swap the nav frequency to make it active. So I'm going to click this button and it will swap it to make it active. Now, there'll typically be an identifier here. We'll get that when we get up in the air. We're quite low on the ground, so we're not picking up properly on that ILS frequency yet. We're about 20 nautical miles out, so we can pick up on it, but we'll have to gain altitude first. And I'll talk about that later. There's one more thing. I mentioned an identifier. You're probably thinking, what the heck are you talking about? Each runway has an identifier. Let's close runway 9 because we're not interested in that. Runway 27. I'm going to click on the charts button in the EFB. This will work on all versions of Flight Sim 2024. Charts button. And it will normally be here, departure maybe, but click on approach. And it's ILS 27. ILS DME NDB 27. It's this one here we want to take a look at. Let me just make this picture a bit bigger for you. Settings, put it into large, the EFB, so we can see that better. Scroll in. I can use my mouse wheel to scroll in. ILQ is the identifier. It's going to be in different places. These charts are all over the place in the EFB at the moment. If you have Navigraph, it's much easier. They're much more uniform. You might find this identifier in a different place on a different chart for your chosen ILS. But do this one first, and then you can practice on others. That's our identifier. When we get up in the air, we should see ILQ come up here next to our active nav1 frequency. Just going to take a moment to slow down there. So what I did, I looked at my chart. I'll bring up my EFB again. I didn't mean to close that. Close the charts button down. I scrolled over to Liverpool Airport, clicked on it, more info. Let's do that again. More info. Clicked on it, more info. And I opened on runways, and so I went to runways and opened 27 as that's where we're landing to find the ILS frequency, which I inputted using my standby frequency here using these knobs. You saw that before. And then I swapped it over to make it the active ILS frequency. So now it's searching essentially for this ILS. We then went to charts, the charts button. If it's not on approach, click on approach and go to ILS 27. Find ILS 27, which is there. And on the charts, in this case, in the top right there, after the frequency, it will give us the identifier ILQ, which we'll pick up on later. wrap your head around that one. That's how to lock onto an ILS. Make sure that you're on GPS mode. If you're not on GPS mode, just hide the yoke for a moment. For whatever reason, you can press your CDI button. It will basically take you through Localizer 1, which we'll be switching to later. Localizer 2, which is Nav 2, we're not using that. And back to GPS, so make sure it's on GPS. We're going to set our autopilot out. Oh, one more thing. I mentioned before a recommended altitude for an ILS approach. The charts will give us that. Bring open the charts again. Again, this is going to be in different places in different charts, but for this chart, it should be the same for everybody. Wants us to be approaching that ILS, which is here, the glide slope, at 2,000 feet. Ignore that part, that's when you're approaching it and turning onto it. Here, it's saying it wants us to be at 2,000 feet altitude to approach, to lock on, to intercept the ILS. Again, that's going to be in different places, but just look for the chart for something similar. It's usually down the bottom. That's your ILS beam, the glide slope beam. And you can see there the altitude it wants you to be at. So 2,000 feet. So we're going to set our autopilot altitude. I'd cover this in another video, like I mentioned, for 2,000 feet. We'll get up in the air and then click on our autopilot and nav mode. Again, it's covered in my previous video in the fundamentals to lock onto our nav mode once we got some vertical speed, positive vertical speed. Okay, like I said, I hope that's not got too fast for you. Let me just get back to my pilot position. I really need to set up buttons for all of them, but I'll do that later on. I mean, 10 degrees of flaps, I can see that there. Let's get on the way. Okay, so throttle up. Release the parking brake. My feet not on my rudder pedals. They are now. And maintain center line. I'm using a very nifty pair of rudder pedals. Watch out for a video coming soon. It's a new set of rudder pedals. Not yet out in the market, but it will be soon. It's not really consequential to the video. Just thought I'd mention it. Right. About takeoff speed. Positive rate of climb. I'll get a few hundred feet above, which was about 250 feet. So around 500 feet, I'll raise my flaps. In fact, well, let's do it properly. About 500 feet, I'll raise my flaps. There we go, that'll do. So my flaps are now up. Nose of the aircraft I want to pitch down a bit. I can use a bit of trim. Still got a positive rate of climb, that's fine. So autopilot on and nav mode. Now, we'll have to fly to our right, it's saying there, as you can see. So I'm going to move my heading knob. I'll do it from here. Just to the left a little bit. Around about there, there's my heading indicator. And again, this was covered in another video. And press heading mode. GPS will still stay in white because we pressed nav mode. But we're too far from the magenta line to lock on. So I'm just bringing myself... Don't worry about the camera movements though, that's part of chase plane. Gotta love that sort of immersion it gives. Do hope it comes to Xbox and PC soon. I'm just going to bring my speed back a bit. You see that green line? We want to be in that range. There you go, just brought my throttle back a bit so I'm safely within that green range. Still climbing, it's fine. In fact, in the climb, you probably want to keep your throttle a bit more forward. That's okay, I'll push it forward a little bit. Getting towards the magenta line, this will lock onto GPS. We're waiting now for that identifier to come up, and it will come up any second. Remember, bring up that again. We're looking for ILQ to appear next to our nav1 frequency. And any second that should come up. We've locked on to our magenta line now. We've locked on to GPS rather. Our course. I'm just going to double check that I do have the right frequency. 111.75. 111.75. So we are correct there. click on my visual assistances. Liverpool Airport's just yonder there. I just want to talk about something I mentioned before. I don't want to go past this part. I'm going to pause the flight, bring up my EFB, and I'm going to come out of that. I'm going to scroll out and click on an airport. Now, I hope I'm going to choose the right airport here. This one will do. I'll click on this airport. EG, is that YX, I believe? Pear Tree Farm Airstrip. If I go to show more info here, and it'll put me on general. I go to runways. There's no frequency, which means, I think this is right, this particular airport, this airstrip, doesn't have ILS frequencies. So not all airports will have ILS frequencies. The major ones like Liverpool, Manchester, airports in the States or around the world, wherever, the major airports typically all have ILS frequencies. Smaller ones don't like this, so you'll have to do a visual landing. Just thought I'll show you that. Let's get back to Liverpool. Show more info. Just want to get to charts and keep us on that chart page, because I want to show you. We should get this identifier come up any second. Unpause the sim. Don't be afraid to pause or unpause the sim if you need to take your time. It's fine. We are flight simming. And I think that's all. I'm just going to bring my throttle back so I'm safe. I've reached my altitude, 2,000 feet. So we're firmly within that green arc, which I covered in the previous video. Stay around 100 knots or so. We don't need to go fast for this flight. There we go. Firmly within that green arc. I'm still waiting for the identifier to come up here, which it should do any second now. We're flying towards runway 27. And once we get the identifier, we're going to switch it to localizer 1, because this is the part I didn't show you in the diagrams. It's the second ILS beam in effect to line you up. We're pretty much flying directly towards the runway anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem. And it should appear any second. Actually, it's swapped to nav 2. I must have inadvertently right clicked that button. To get to nav 2, you just right click on this smaller knob, but keep it on nav 1. Any second we should get that identifier. So for the moment, we'll just enjoy the flight. And I'll stay with you during the flight, so we'll do the whole lot together. We can do all this together. Let's shrink that chase plane. I'm just going to click the swap frequency in. So that's now my standby, and back. So that's now. There we go. I will, because it should have come up before. If that happens, just click. Maybe that's a good example. Just click your swap frequency to swap your active backwards and forwards. There you go. The identifiers come up. What we want to do now, I'm just going to pause the flight again. We're going to press our CDI button to localizer 1. Now, this is the second ILS beam. This is to line you up with the runway. Depending what ILS you're going to do, this course deviation line could be left or right. The course deviation line, that's this middle line here, is to our right. Which, where our heading bug is, in fact, is perfect. So we want to turn to our right to coax the course deviation line in. If this course deviation line was over here, we'll need to turn to the left to coax the line in to the center. We want all these lined up. Once it's all lined up, we'll press our approach mode to lock on to the ILS. And then you'll see the glide slope indicator come down slowly, and it will lock onto that under approach mode. So we only need to press approach mode once. So what we did there, my friends, you'll be in that configuration, or you should be, GPS, so it's following our magenta line. Press the CDI button once to get to localizer 1, which is our ILS. It's the second beam. Think of it that way. It's to lock on to our left and right movements to line up with the runway. I'll unpause it. I need to come to my right, so I'm going to click my heading mode because my heading bug's over here. And it's turning me to the right. I'm waiting for that line to move in. I'm just going to slow down so we get to 100 knots as well. See the line moving in? When you see it moving in, press your approach button. Approach mode will now take over, and it will keep us centered to the runway, in this case, runway 27. Let me just click on my pilot position. And Liverpool Airport, there you go. This is approach mode now, so it's not in heading mode, it's in approach mode. It's locking us on to the... to take us directly towards Liverpool Airport, runway 27, which is over there. Hope that makes sense. Rewatch that part. So that's the second ILS line, in fact, the second beam. It's your left or right lateral positioning to the runway. The glide slope indicator, which has just come up. In fact, let's not do that, because I can do it this way. Just mouse in, and we can get a view of both. When this glide slope indicator starts to move down to center, we're in approach mode already. It will lock on and descend us. All you need to do is to make sure by the time that diamond has moved to center, before it locks on, get into flaps range. I can do this now. Bring my throttle back. I want to get to this white taper of the speed ribbon. Again, I do hope, I always worry this is going too fast. I'm quite used to ILSs. Other people are not, particularly if you're new. Follow all the directions. Tune in your nav frequency for the runway, looking at your charts like we did before. We got the frequency, we tuned in with our nav one. We waited to see the identifier come up for Liverpool Airport, ILQ, which it did here. So we know we're locked onto the right nav frequency. Once the identifier comes up, you can switch to CDI to move left or right under heading mode to bring that course deviation line to the center. Once it started moving to the center, we clicked approach mode. Autopilot's taken over pretty much fully. We don't want to go that slow. Let's speed up a bit. Didn't keep an eye on my speed. I'll keep it around 70 to 80 knots. So re-watch the part and try and get it down. There's two beams. We capture the third beam, our left to right, our lateral navigation it's called, in fact. Our positioning towards the runway. The runway's directly ahead of us because we coaxed the course deviation line in. It was over here. We coaxed it into center and we clicked approach mode so it's locked onto it. The glide slope indicator's now moving down. I'm going to go to flaps 1. 10 degrees of flaps. Still under autopilot. We'll stay under autopilot, in fact, until we're very close to the runway. Bring that speed down. Don't want to go out of that white ribbon there. There's a bit of a flare from the flaps. You notice my aircraft rocking a bit. That's to do with chase plane. Don't worry if you don't have chase plane. It's just something that's integrated with it. And you'll see when we come to land. Let's hope I land smoothly. You'll see a bit of a bump. That's also a sort of jolt of the aircraft. Anyway, we're not talking about chase plane in this video. That's a separate video. That's linked for you in the description just in case you are interested. And you have PC Flight Sim 2024 for the moment. Right. Glide slope indicator's coming down. We're at a good speed, because when it comes down to the center, it will lock onto us. You'll notice the autopilot, our altitude will start to descend, because we're in approach mode. You'll see the GS go green, like it has now, and it will stay locked on. So it's keeping us, remember that diagram I showed you before? It's keeping us in a movement, sloping down to the runway. Well, in this case, sloping downwards. See, we're descending under autopilot, under approach mode. Didn't need to click anything else. All I need to do is make sure that my speed, which is starting to creep out of flaps range, Just bringing my throttle back. Gonna go to stage 2 flaps. I'll do that from here. 20 degrees of flaps. That'll keep us nice and slow. Within the flaps range in our Cessna 172. Gradually coming down to the runway here. And when I had to swap that before to get the identifier, I knew I was close enough to it. We were just over 10 nautical miles at that point. I knew that it should have been showing, so I just swapped it in and out active frequency to get it showing. It's just a bit of a flaw with Flight Sim 2024. Possibly the G1000. I'm not sure which. There you go. You can see we're still descending. I've not done any outside views, have I? Lovely chase plane outside views. Keeping our aircraft centered, which is nice. I'll turn off the visualizations in a moment. It's just to give you a visual representation of where you are in relation to the airport. We can actually see the runway now, can't we? So I can turn the visualizations off. Well, we're going to keep around 70 knots, so let's just bring that throttle back a wee bit. You've got to be careful, because sometimes it will level out under autopilot. It's following the glide slope down, but it will level off a little bit, and then you'll speed back up a bit. So just be careful of your speed. Only reduce it gradually, in this case, to get it back down to 70 knots. With 20 degrees of flaps, that's absolutely fine for a landing. In this configuration, 2 white, 2 red. Perfect, of course, it's under autopilot. There we go, 17 knots, absolutely perfect. We're just over, but that's okay. Coming down, you can see the vibrations of the aircraft again. That's chase plane. I've mentioned that a few times. It's just in case people are saying, oh, my aircraft doesn't do that. Hopefully it will in the future. Really should have been part of the sim, but you know, don't put it past Asobo. There's a surprise coming soon, apparently. I'm keeping my eyes on that. Eyes on a prize to see what that surprise is. Who knows what they're going to introduce next. How are we doing? Interesting patterns along the fields there, but there we are. Yeah, I was going to say, internet's fine. Liverpool just yonder there. As we approach the runway, by the way, so as you can see, once you've put it into approach mode to get the course deviation line in, you don't need to do anything else with autopilot, just watch your speed. That's why people love ILSs. I enjoy them, but I also enjoy visual landings, landing myself. As we get closer, maybe around here, I'm going to take autopilot off and do a manual landing. You could let it plonk you down on the runway, but it will literally plonk you down, and that's not something you would do in real life in this type of aircraft, in the Cessna 172 for example. I think other aircraft you can do, but typically all landings will be done manually if able. It's just a safety feature. You don't want the autopilot to screw up and smack you into the runway, basically. So there we go, bring that throttle back slightly. I'm going to take autopilot off now. And I'm taking over, so I've got my hands on my yoke, got my hands on my throttle. Going to reduce my throttle a tiny bit, but I'm going to wait till we're past these lights of the runway and we're over the runway number. Try and maintain centre line, Huddison. There we go, about there. Reduce my throttle slowly to 0. And do a bit of flotation. Can I stall on the runway by chance? Not quite. I did quite a hefty landing there, didn't I? Never mind. And then we'll come off to our left. Yeah. Not bad. I mean, we got down, but I've had better. That's flow, by the way, landing rate. I always get questions. Link to both flow and chase plane down below, because people always ask. Parking brake on. There we go, my friend. Raise my flaps while I do that as well. I do hope this has been useful for you if you're learning ILS landings. Go and watch through the whole video again if you've not quite grasped it and you're having trouble. Practice this route I showed you first. Get used to that. Get proficient. And then do ILSs on other airports. I do like Flight Sim 2024 when it does that. Leaves grass stains, sort of tyre marks in the grass. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. And I'll see you soon.